I would just like to invite everyone to, everyone who can stay to give us kind of a takeaway from today that they're going to, they're going to kind of follow up with, after this event. So Marie or Claire, I know if you want to start.
Marie, do you want to go first? I'll go first then. So I think go ahead, Marie.
Sorry, I had to leave webinar and had to get out of it. I would just like to say I completely agree with everybody here about working across organisations and beyond our silos. This afternoon we are hosting or co-hosting an online hate webinar with people from Pakistan and Iraq who do AI research on triggering words that deliver online hate messaging and, but quite murderous content to minorities in those countries. And we are kind of swapping how we deal with trolling and abuse in our areas. And so I think those kind of collaborations and shared solutions are really the way to go.
Thank you.
I would just add on that that as we design, it is a whole of society problem. You've heard today how many different facets disinformation touches on. We need the voices of the people who are most affected to be involved in designing solutions, and that is often not the case. It's great that we've had voices here today from some of the communities most affected, but if it's without wanting to offend groups of white men in Silicon Valley, if it's groups of white men in Silicon Valley designing solutions, we will not get out of the problem.
Thank you. Brilliant. Thank you both. Iman.
I think it's important to tackle disinformation and fake news collectively and across platforms, newspapers, news agencies. Equally, I think one of the things that maybe we've missed is while we're looking at the online harms, we're looking at really the major social media platforms. But let's not forget there's other social media platforms that are picking up, that are not regulated under the online harms, are not looked at, and are spreading extremist narrative and fake news and misinformation. It's about really how do we reflect on the lessons learned on working on the online harms, but on working on tackling disinformation with different agencies collectively to actually as well address what will come our way from these small social media platforms that are as well leading the way now in the spread of misinformation, fake news. And lastly, maybe one of the things that as well maybe we need to work on is, as I said earlier, working collectively in standing against hatred and thinking of it that, and if there is misinformation or fake news about one community, it's not affecting that community only. It's affecting our social cohesion, it's affecting us all, and it's impacting as well our safety. Thank you.
Thank you. Steve.
Yeah, I guess I think to add to all of that as well, I think for me it's a more sort of personal point, and I think that's about individuals making the difference. So I think we all have a tendency, particularly, and I've worked in very big organizations through to very small startups, you have a tendency to sort of defend what you're doing yourselves, and particularly if you're leading the way, to then talk to others that are not doing and holding themselves to the same standards. But I think we can, so I think it's 2 points. I think one, we can a tendency to always think about how we can improve and think about how we can lead, particularly with disinformation and misinformation, wherever we sit, and think about what can we do, what measures can we take to improve and keep improving, rather than thinking, well, we're above the pack and everybody else is not doing as well as me, so I'm going to criticize them and not improve. Keep improving and lead by example. And also just for individuals to try and make a difference within organizations and not think, well, I can't create change. Change can only start with individuals. So wherever they sit, if you're sitting in a brand organization, to think, how can I get control of this? GARM is sort of helpful to some degree at codifying and applying a framework. It is not perfect at all. It will need to grow and it'll need to, but it's at least, it started with an idea of some people within certain brands. The person leading it, the WFA, worked at Mars and said, I want to take personal responsibility for this. Ended up leaving their company and leading this initiative. So it was an individual taking responsibility. And I think we can all do that and think, my organization might have a very strong viewpoint, but how can I then lobby internally? How can I take responsibility for that and say, how can we improve? And I think we have a tendency sometimes to think, well, we can't really do that because what control do I have? particularly if you're not on the senior leadership team. But it needs to start with that change. I think we can take that personal responsibility. I would urge everybody to do that, because by doing that, that's the only way we're going to see change in ourselves. So, focus on what we can do best and keep improving, and then think, how can we then drive that change internally? I would kind of encourage everybody to kind of get on board with that.
And finally, Rita.
I just wanted to say that I think COVID misinformation, dehumanization of minorities, and I suppose climate action or climate change misinformation, those are 3 areas which are having a huge impact on us globally. And we, moving forward, we can't just be seduced by the idea that it's too hard, or there's a slippery slope, or it's too complex, or we have to accept that there are real people who are affected by each of these, cohort of problems, and people that have very high stakes in trying to get good solutions. And if I just speak for a moment on behalf of the Muslim community here in Australia, we have such an incredible high stake in getting good solutions. Brenton Tarrant was an Australian, and we are so determined to find that balance between freedom of expression and taking action on bad actors that weaponize platforms and weaponize the news. And we have thought through every complexity to this, because there's such high stakes for us. And as I think it was Claire who mentioned, we often aren't paid that respect in terms of acknowledging that we have all this expertise, because we have thought through the problem in every single way. And we just need that engagement at that expertise level from, across the industry. Thank you so much for including us today.
Thank you so much to all of our panelists. Thank you so much to everyone who's tuned in today and who's listened. I think we've got some really strong calls for action around collaboration, around kind of better policies and better enforcement and better definitions, about better legislation in this space. And it sounds like that there, it sounds like there's a lot of thinking that's happened so far. So we'd just like to finish there. Thank you for joining us today, and yeah, hope to see you soon.
Yes, exactly that, Harriet. Thank you all so much for joining, and to our lovely, wonderful speakers, and for your great moderation as always, Harriet. It's been really, really insightful discussion, and such an important topic, as we all know. So yeah, big thank you. I did just want to add that we do have our next crunch coming up on the 28th of October, which is all focused around brand spend accountability. So how brands are working with publishers and the ad industry to demonstrate social responsibility. So, it does tie in, I think, quite nicely with this one. It is kind of a continuing theme that we are looking at. But before that, we do also have our Publishing Tech Talk coming up between the 11th and 14th of October, which will also be a series of virtual events with an in-person social to finish the week off. So we hope to see you all then. But once again, thank you very much, and we'll speak to you soon.